Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Top Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Daniel Jai and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Top Talking Thursday, we're going to be looking at four presidential hopefuls or four presidential candidates in election 2023. They are Councillor Tiawan C. Gongloe, Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings, Mr. Joseph Newman Boakai, and the incumbent George Mani Weah. Based on how the country is going now, we thought it wise to talk about 2023. It is clear, in my view, that President Weah or the country under President Weah is not going so smoothly. And so the need for a change is imminent or is very important. But who's going to do it? Again, we don't want to be in a rush to change leaders just for the sake of it, because I, for one, am tired of any water can put up fire. But we want to look at the candidates. We want to look at Councillor Gongloe. We want to look at Mr. Cummings. We want to also look at President Weah and Joseph Newman Boakai. So to do this, I have invited people from the various camps to talk about their candidates. The goal here is, who is your choice for 2023 and why? So to start this, I want to introduce Mr. Wilmot Weti Cooney. He is FOL Chief Political Analyst. Tonight, he's representing the CDC. Mr. Cooney, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Happy to be here. And I just want to say hi to my fellow panelists.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Anthony Gay. He represents the ANC of Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings. Mr. Gay, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Jad. Good to see you tonight, and good evening to the fellow panelists. And hopefully, we're going to have a very spirited discussion tonight.
All right, thank you. Also joining us from Philadelphia is the chairman of Team Gongloe, Mr. Dave Toja. Dave, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Well, thank you very much. I'm quite excited to be part of this exercise. Thank you
for
again.
Disclosure, go ahead.
And my fellow panelists, I'm delighted to have this conversation with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave.
Welcoming all your new ideas, and hopefully you have the latitudes to do that, because Liberia's case is a serious one.
Thank you. Full disclosure, Dave is my brother, but I can assure you nobody's going to be Como tonight, so rest assured. Next, we have joining us also from Philadelphia is FOL Political Analyst, independent-minded Mohammed Sharif of Waplo Institute from Kilipo, Kanwekan. Mr. Sharif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Hey, that is always good to be here. I'm very delighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. And I want to say thanks to all of you. Also invited for this program is Mr. George Lobo, representing Team Joseph Newman Boakai. Mr. Lobo was on the program, but he had to leave because he does not want to be on the same platform with Mr. Anthony Gay of the ANC. Whatever the issues are, we don't know, but Mr. Lobo apologized that he is not able to, and he's going to find us another JNB supporter to come on the platform, so we're waiting. So quickly, we want to go into it because in my view, 2023 is very, very important, and we want to know who you support. So this time, I'm going to start with Mr. Cooney with the simple question. After Mr. Cooney will be the Team Gongloe, then Mr. Gay before we go to our independent-minded Comrade Sharif. Mr. Cooney, the question here is your choice 2023. Who is your choice 2023 and why?
My choice 2023 has been my choice since 2005. In 2005, a young Liberian, a grassroots Liberian, somebody who pulled himself by his own bootstrap, appeared on the Liberian political scene as the hope of the Liberian grassroots. And he has since been the leader of the grassroots movement in Liberia. That is Mr. George Mani Weah. I have supported him since 2005. I have supported him even in his senatorial elections, and I've supported him in the 2017 elections. And George Weah Bakube is my choice of leadership. Is the candidate that I will support. I will continue to support in the 2023 elections. I will do everything in my power to support Mr. George Weah for the leadership that he has provided even before he became president, and for the hope that he has provided even before he became president, and for the hope that he continued to provide for the grassroots of that country.
Thank you.
So there's no doubt, unapologetic, unabashed, no reservation, is George Weah.
Thank you so much. This time we're going to go to Team Gongloe, Dave Ja. Dave, who is your choice for 2023 and why? Same question.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, Dennis. Again, I'm delighted to be here. I represent a paradigm shift. I represent the ideals and the aspirations of the Liberian people to repurpose government so that government can be a reflection of the needs of the people and their aspirations. I also represent the ideals to make government effective, very responsive, very understanding, and the government that addresses the needs of the people. And I strongly believe that under the able leadership of Councillor Tiawan C. Gongloe, the man who epitomizes the grassroots structure of Liberia, not only by his name, but by his ideals, his aspirations, and his commitment to what makes Liberia, or what will make Liberia a great nation. That is the person that I represent, and that is the institution that I represent. I strongly believe, without any reasonable contradictions, that Mr. Tiawan or Councillor Tiawan C. Gongloe can head a government that can recreate the Liberia that all of us have aspired to live in. So I'm here to have this exchange with my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Mr. Anthony Gay, who represents Mr. Cummings and the ANC. Mr. Gay, who is your choice for 2023 and why?
My choice is Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings Jr., who is the standard bearer of the ANC. Since 2016, I've been a member of the ANC, and then I've served in other capacity, but I can tell you for a fact, I joined the ANC all because of the ideology of the party, and also I like what Mr. Cummings brings to the table. He was an accomplished Liberian who left the country at a young age, came in the diaspora, educated himself, worked, earned himself the name recognition in the corporate setting, and also became an outstanding employee of the Coca-Cola branch. But before that, he was the youngest executive vice president for Pittsburgh Company at age 36. His resume and his personal story is every Liberian story. He was not born with a silver platter. He was born in the government hospital. He went to government school. And before, he went to Cottington for 2 years, and then came to the United States and went to the Northern Illinois University, and subsequently went to Emory University, that is now Clark University. But Mr. Cummings brings something to the table that Liberia had been yearning for very too long. And that is the sense of entitlement, the sense of popularity, of the sense of just not giving people the opportunity to strive in our country. You can be well educated, you can have everything that they ask for on the job application, and still to shove your file underneath. All because Liberia has been operating this way. Mr. Cummings has come to Liberia, have never participated in politics before until 2016. And when he came to Liberia, he participated in 2017, but did not leave the country, even though he did not win, but stayed in the country and started canvassing in the country since 2017. Mr. Cummings has traveled the country extensively. He brings a different set of ideas. He's innovative. He's willing to introduce to Liberia technological approaches to Liberia. We're in Liberia now that is far back, 25 years, I would say, technologically, to be able to introduce that front to Liberia. He is the kind of leader like Liberia is journey for, where every Liberian will have the opportunity to strive. You don't have to be rich, but you have to be able to sustain yourself and your family. And that is the kind of Liberia Mr. Cummings is bringing to Liberia. And I cannot wait for that kind of real change that Mr. Cummings is bringing to Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Gate. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, and this is Tough Talking Thursday. The topic, Gongloe, Cummings, Boakai, or Weah, your choice for 2023. I have Mr. Dave Jah representing Team Gongloe, Mr. Wilmot Cooney representing the CDC, and Mr. Anthony Gay representing the ANC. This time I'll call on Mr. Mohammed Sharif, who is not representing any of the political parties, to give me a take. Mr. Sharif, your choice for 2023 and why?
Dennis, thank you very, very much. This is very important. This is a very important discussion at this time. When you think about what's going on, 2023 is right around the corner. So it has to concern all of us that at this time, when the direction of the nation is at stake, you don't see the caliber of candidates that need to be out there to take over from this inefficient administration. This administration is politically and economically, that have politically and economically bankrupt the Liberian nation state. So I have a deep bench. I have a deep field of individuals that I think about. Some of them, most of them are not even in the field. Most of them have not thrown their hats into the proverbial ring. And so in no particular order, Dr. Yan comes to mind. Dr. Duba Yan is a Liberian scientist who currently reside in the state of Maryland. Dr. Yan is someone who I think can lead the country out of the current doldrums from the abyss of economic malaise, from the abyss of political and economic inefficiency. For full disclosure, Dr. Yan was a good friend of my late brother Abu, who's no longer my brother Abu, who's no longer with us. So he was a good friend of my elder brother. Dr. Yan. So besides these personal connections, I've known Dr. Yan as a student activist for a very, very long time. So he does not, he will bring to the job of leading the country a resume of fighting for the underclass, of fighting for the underprivileged Liberians. And so Dr. Yan during the Ebola epidemic played a role in ensuring that that sort of research was done. He made his scientific contribution, and even the last crisis, he also volunteered to assist. his assistance, his his assistance to the nation was not welcome. So he's someone that I look at. So Dennis, if you ask me the question of who do I have a lot. I have a deep, deep bench. So I said in no particular order. I also think of a guy like Councilor Ngbali Warner, who is a very astute Liberian. Talk about someone who pulled himself by the bootstrap. Councilor Warner is one of those. He was an activist. He's a fighter. I think of former Finance Minister Amara Kone, who is a very, very astute civil servant, someone who served his nation with dignity, and someone who really have a sense of direction and where the country needs to go. He's a young man who has the ambition of um, taking Liberia truly into the 21st century of development, economic development, political enlightenment, and the whole Liberian Renaissance. So he is someone who I think can lead the country. And finally, I watched Mr. Kesley, uh, Beyond Kesley, I think his name, Beyond Kesley. One time, he was at a program and he delivered a speech, and there was this whole. I watched him, and his speech was full of real promises. I don't know him that well, but I thought that his expressions and things that he espoused really appealed to me. So I can throw in Gongloe as well, but I need to hear more from him. So I have a deep, deep bench of individuals who I think can lead the Liberian nation state.
Thank you. And just to clarify before I let you go, Mr. Sharif, none of those people you listed is in the race.
Unfortunately,
Does that
none of
mean
those.
you don't if the bench, if they are the list of candidates we have today, if they're going to the if they were going to be the one going to be voted for, which of them will you pick?
So if this is all, I mean, Dennis, come on, man.
And
So
you and you have
Great question,
it's okay
Dennis.
to abstain also.
if this is all we have, and you say you have to do this, then perhaps I'll close my eyes and just play ping pong. I don't know. I mean, it's really and without and not to belabor the point, that just goes to show you uh, the need, the deficiency on both sides, the deficiency on the side of the administration, the deficiency on the side of the opposition. So right now the opposition has nothing to offer differently, Dennis. I mean, what do they have to offer?
Thank
So
you.
unless someone tells me or manifests, you don't have to keep telling me, just manifest, show me something that
Right.
you're going to do differently. And so I think in that sense, I haven't seen anything. And I think the major supporters have not seen anything, but they're building on hopes. And we cannot eat hope. Hope alone can't cut it for Liberia at this time.
Thank you so much. And Dave, that's it. Mr. Sharif stressed that what can you do differently? What do they have to offer? So I want to ask you this question. What does Councillor Tiawan Gonglo bring to the table? What can he do differently that will convince someone like Mr. Sharif, or tell us that of all the other candidates, Councillor Gonglo is the one to make the difference?
Okay. Thank you again, Dennis. Uh, I was quietly and listening to Brother Sharif articulate those points, and it may be sad to say that, but I'm also happy that he has said those things because some of them reflect what Councillor Bungalow stands for. Okay, my brother is making reference to people who have sacrificed, who have lived their life serving the Liberian people. But this is where even Councillor Gonglo is different from the ones that my brother has just listed. Councillor Gongloe does not just say it, but he lived it. Councillor Gongloe had every opportunity to live in the West, enjoy the luxury of the West. He can work in any city, in any Western country, and he will make a decent living. But yet, this counselor, with his astuteness, with his understanding and his depth of knowledge, have decided to remain in his country in the midst of the struggles, in the midst of the humiliation that he's gone through, and to directly serve the Liberian people. My brother is making reference to people who are considered the brains of the country, who go to the country to serve, get what they can, and then abandon the nation. Councillor Gongloe has never done that. He was in the United States and he saw the need to return. And let me tell you about that also. Even I sitting here, I felt that I had the capability, the knowledge, the experience, and the interactions with the Liberian people to run for the presidency. But I think, has in things fall apart that the sun will shine on those who stand before it, shines on those who kneel before it. Councillor Gongloe has been standing tall under that sun, and therefore he must be given that kind of respect and acknowledgement. Apart from that, this is what we're going to do in government. This is what a Gongloe-led government is going to do. It's going to be different because, as my brother was saying, this is exactly
Real quickly. You have 1 minute, so just go to the Tier 1 Gongloe difference.
So, as I said, we're going to repurpose government. Government is going to be about the people, and the person himself, who is going to be the head of our government, is the one that will serve as the persecutor of government. So I'll give you one example. Just one example why we think we are better suited. And that example is to redefine the Liberian workforce, or what you call the Liberian civil servants. Let's redefine them, repurpose them. You see, our form of government over the years has taken the approach of what I describe as a Eurocentric kind of government. You are valueless in Liberia if you do not have the kind of education that these guys have up here, that Brother Sharif has, that Brother Kuni has. Our government has relegated the people of that nation. In a Gongloe's government, there's going to be a paradigm shift. That's just one example I want to give you. It will be a paradigm shift where we will redefine what you call the Liberian or civil servants. The Liberian workforce will be redefined. And that redefinition is now going to incorporate rural workers, people who have worked day and night tirelessly, but they are not rewarded, they are not respected in the service of Europeanized education, Europeanized work, or how we define work within the context of our Eurocentrism.
Thank you.
That's one key point that we will be introducing to government. Like the Liberian people, the hardworking Liberian people will be considered as part of the Liberian workforce. And I don't see anybody to challenge that. And that workforce will include what? Farmers, rural analysis. And that's going to be one of the most paradigm shifts that we will introduce to government. And I bet anybody who can challenge that, if we introduce that within the next 5 years, poverty will be reduced, if not eradicated.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Kuni, who represents the CDC. President Weah is in charge now, and he's been steering the affairs of the nation state since he took over almost 4 years now. What has Mr. Weah done to tell the Liberian people to give him a second term that you can point at?
Well, clearly, anybody with an eye to see will see the tremendous progress that this government has made over the past 4 going to 5 years, for which the Liberian people will actually look at the records and decide that in the name of continuity, in the name of continuing this progress, for George Weah to be re-elected. George Weah is too many things to too many people. He's a very humble man. He has a humble beginning. He's very peaceful. He has not instigated anything personally as president of the Republic of Liberia that would throw the country into chaos. The government has respected the rights of all Liberians, their political rights, their civil rights, their individual rights. But more importantly, Mr. Weah has done something that most of us, most Liberians don't do, even in organizations. He decided to continue projects from the previous administration that are in the interest of the Liberian people. He did not start his presidency by uselessly reinventing the wheel. So, for example, the CDC government continued the road construction projects in the country. In addition to what they met, they've also added their own. If you go in Liberia, there is road construction all over the country. There are road projects all over the country. There are road projects that are online. There are some road projects that are still waiting for funding for the government to implement. Mr. Weah has confronted the issue of public education in Liberia by making public education tuition free. Instead of having ideas how to make it better, all the opposition does is to just make noise that the policy has no effect. The leadership of Mr. Weah has led to the improvement of the achievement of our high school students when it comes to the Weah exam through very small policies like after-school program and the payment of Weah fees for the students. So in the area of road construction, the government is making progress. In the area of electrification, rural electrification, in as much as electricity is not current in the country, but there is no disputing the fact that prior to the CDC government taking power, the household connection in Liberia was just about 40,000 households. But right now, there are about 150 to 160,000 households that are connected, though there is sporadic power outages. So the people are saying that kind of progress. There are more Liberians now that have access, especially in the Monrovia area, to pipe-borne water than when Mr. Weah became president. You see in the rural electrification project, the solar panels, the opposition dismissed that as light bulbs that go off. Then, of course, you see the area of rural housing, where for the first time in the history of the country, low-cost government housing has left the confines of Monrovia and are showing up in rural Liberia. Then again, for the first time since the 1990s, Mr. Weah has maintained the security of the state. My panelists and my fellow panelists know, as of 1989, Liberia did not provide their own security. Even the 12 years of Madam Salif was subsidized with heavy international support to maintain security in the country. Without such support, the CDC government has maintained security in the country. based on internal efforts. Despite all of the challenges, and we're not saying the situation is perfect. Every government have their challenges. The issue of crimes all over. Even here in the United States with our perfect governance system, there are crimes everywhere. So yes, crimes are of concern to any Liberian. Crime don't wear partisan clothes. It doesn't matter if it's Sedition or UP or ANC. Crime is crime. But I'm saying for the first time since the post-war, George Weah has been able to maintain security entirely based on internal resources.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Before you end, I just want to show you something because we have two unexplained deaths currently that took place. I don't know when you say security, you mean if a foreign country invades Liberia, if that's what you're talking about. So the recent death of a young lady in Pinsville. We also see that MCSS is carrying on a GoFundMe because MCSS school buildings are in ruin. We also see RIA in total darkness. And I'm saying this because you mentioned education. You also mentioned electrification.
Yeah, and this is why we're saying we acknowledge challenges in those sectors. We're not saying they are running perfectly. Okay. It's not our position. We're not saying they're running perfectly, but there are efforts in the right direction to solve those problems. You talk about the unexplained death. I mean, that hurt everybody. The death of anybody is of concern. The government is concerned. Equally, like we are all concerned. But these are one of the challenges you face in society. There will be crime. No matter how vigilant you are, no matter how vigilant the security forces are, there will be crime. So those challenges are being addressed.
Thank you. And let's be very quick now, and at least 2 minutes each of you. So let me go to Mr. Anthony Gay to tell me about Mr. Cummings. What is Mr. Cummings going to do differently? He ran in 2017. He did not win. He tried to join with the CPP to garner more votes. That did not work. What is the Cummings difference?
The Cummings difference for Liberia is simple. This election 2023 that is pending will be about two major things, and that's why I'm going to focus on tonight. It's going to be about the economy, and they're going to be about change. And guess what? The bread and butter issue today for every Liberian is the economy. No jobs. The hopelessness of youth. Every month, we see people graduating in Liberia on social media. They are posting, they are celebrating. But at the end of the day, they're going to go home. No job. They going to sit there and wait for another 6 years, and the government keep telling them wait and wait and wait. The change is this system that we have currently have never served the people, has always been for the few very top to enjoy themselves. So the vast majority of Liberians have continued to struggle. President Weah did not invent this, but he amplified it. And so this is a change that Mr. Cummings is going to bring to Liberia, is for every Liberian to have the opportunity to strive. And that's why I sent you that 5-minute video, because in that 5-minute video, it outlined the what's and how. But because we don't have that video, and I'm going to use this opportunity to outline those things. The number one thing in Liberia today, we will start with electricity. So that's infrastructure. Because we just saw recently on Friday, the president landed. Prior to the president landing in Monrovia or in Mangibi County at RIA, the electricity went 3 times. It was confirmed by Minister Zoka Wilson, who also appeared on the Spoon Talk. He confirmed that, yes, indeed. We saw video parading as well on other platforms, and also Spoon Talk also showed a clear video that the terminal was completely dark. People were using the flashlight on their phone. People were using other physical flashlight and other different things. Can you imagine in this 21st century, we are still talking about power outages? I just heard Mr. Cooney, taking virtual live about how many houses have connectivity when it comes to electricity. What good does it do for the people that have the power line to the house and they have no electricity? What good does it do for the people that have access to free education and no quality of the education? The buildings are deplorable. Look, let us be honest with ourselves here. It is a good thing that President Weah pronounced free tuition. We all applauded him for that. But in the free tuition process, President Weah did not give a clear policy as to how he would implement this. And that's where we criticize him. Also, we also criticize President Weah that not because you provided free tuition, so the people should go and sit in the deplorable building. Mr. Cooley, you yourself sitting there, you won't sit your child, let alone yourself to sit in that building to be schooled. Let us be honest with ourselves. When we say change, we mean it. So Mr. Cummings will bring that change. That job creation will be a top priority for him. Electricity, which is part of infrastructure, will be a top priority for him. We cannot function in this 21st century without power. Mr. Jack, this show is not possible without power. Let's just be honest. If you did not have power, we wouldn't be here. If we do not have power in Liberia, we can't have the industry that we all long for. If we do not have reliable electricity, we cannot have a call center in Liberia. We cannot have a factory in Liberia that will operate 24/7. We cannot have, things that have to function using electricity. Okay, I get it. If LEC is troubling our people, what happened with solar panel? What can we have a solar panel at the airport at least to generate electricity? What? Because the government cannot afford to put a windmill. One windmill costs $30 million, so that's too much. But you can invest into solar panel at least $5 to $6, $7 million. You can have something. So you have a beautiful terminal. The escalator is not working. The AC system is not working. Nice, beautiful glass building, and the people are sweating. It's very hot in that building. And you call that development? Look, listen, let us be real with ourselves here. No personal feelings against President Weah, but take the international airport serious. It is the face. Look, we say in America, first impression matters. When people put their foot on the ground in Liberia, they want to see. Look, I went there 2019.
Mr. Gay.
The old airport, the old terminal, I was disappointed. I held my hand like this at the orange booth, trying to get my orange internet service set up. I stood there for almost 5 minutes in
Mr.
the
Gay, the
complete
moderator
shock.
is calling you to a point.
Mr. Gay.
So this is what Mr. Cummings is bringing. Mr. Cummings.
Mr. Gay.
Yes.
What before you end, and you have 30 seconds more, before you end, I want you to tell me what has Mr. Cummings done to point to the fact that he's able to accomplish those things that you are listing? Is it because Mr. Cummings is saying it, or why should the Liberian people trust and believe him?
Absolutely not. Let's forget about Mr. Cummings' resume from the corporate world, because it's outstanding. Mr. Cummings went to Liberia and invested in Liberians. He established a STEM school. I challenge any school right now in Liberia, any high school that is better structured, well-funded than the STEM school. He introduced to the Liberian people that, listen, this too can happen in our country. These young Liberians can also benefit in our country if we invest in them. Mr. Cummings joined the CPP, not to brag, but each political leader had the opportunity to steer the affairs of the CPP. Under his leadership, we saw what he did. He registered the CPP. The CPP was more viable, more vibrant. The CPP won 6 political seats, 6 senatorial seats under his leadership. And the CPP had presence. People were afraid of the CPP. The viability of the CPP was seen everywhere.
Thank you, Mr.
Leaders
thank you,
had
Mr.
the opportunity.
Gay. Thank you.
But they did not exercise that power.
Thank you. Dave, I'll come to you. Let me go to Mr. Sharif. Mr. Sharif, I want you to scan the candidates that we've spoken about. And you say you're going to be closing your eyes and doing many more. What is it that you are looking for in these presidential hopeful that you don't see in any one of them?
Well, so let's take a look at the incumbent, for example. So George Weah came to office as an anti-corruption individual who was supposed to fix the issue of corruption that uh, saddled the latter part of the previous administration before him. But what happened? George Weah, as soon as he got into office, he was it was almost as if he was like a child who has gone into the candy store. So with this, uncontrollable zest and for wealth and the creation of personal properties and the establishment of personal wealth. And so the first task that he engaged in was massive construction projects for himself. So, this is someone who didn't have that kind of income before he went into the office, before he took over the office of the presidency. And another thing is that he did not establish a clean break with the past. I mean, this is someone who did not declare his financial assets. These are elementary prerequisites of a leader who is, serious about sound economic management of this country. So if I, look at all of this, so I have to strike him out because he has not met the criteria. Forget the
Mr.
fact
Sherry,
that,
let me interrupt. Dave is going to leave very soon. So be brief so that I can go to Dave. So ask him a question so that he can take leave of us.
okay,
So
so
let's go to Gongloe, Cummings, and Boakai quickly.
The opposition, so I'm going to, treat them collectively. So the opposition has not demonstrated to us that they are any serious alternative. What you see right now is very disgraceful that you have an opposition that has broken apart. They cannot even come together for at least two election cycles to be able to take over the presidency. I mean, they were successful. Anthony Mr. Gay mentioned the election when the CPP was together, they were successful. That is true, and they should have continued to be successful if it wasn't for personal greed. So what has overtaken the opposition is the greed, individual greed, and so for that reason, I don't think they are a viable alternative.
Thank you. Yeah, and Dave, as you're going to be leaving soon, well, here are the few questions. Since 2005,
Yeah.
no one has been in Councillor Gonglo's position to win election or even become a factor. There are people who are suggesting like he's coming late to the game, so why can't he go number two to Kennedy X or Kennedy Y? Why do you think these people are wrong?
Dennis, and this is the look. I have a lot to discuss tonight. In fact, I'm going to extend my time by 30 minutes.
Good.
You see, and this is the problem that we face in Liberia. We have these keyboard commentators, and people have over the years, if I would borrow from even Cummings, that we continue to do the same thing over and over, and we expect different results. That is a definition of stupidity. You expect different outcome when you are doing the same thing over and over. And you can see that, you can hear that reflected even in the viewpoints of our brothers up on this stage. So the Liberian leadership is is just about personality. It's about style. This person is going to do it this way because he's tall, he's big, he's that. There's nothing like new ideas that have been introduced. And this is, I mean, with much due respect, but sometimes it's sad for this country. Uh, my brother Gay talked about priority of government will be electricity. People don't have electricity. Communist representative, people do not have electricity not because government doesn't want to provide electricity, But government does not have the capacity to provide and sustain electricity. Two things: the economics and the competence. So the problem is not about electricity. That's not the core problem of the country. You talked about winning seats. Winning seat for, and that's the thing. Our concern is about occupying seat, and that's all. There is much more to taking up a seat than governing with that seat. You can have as many seats for your political party, but if this political party cannot perform substantially for the people for which government was established, it's useless. So counting on your accomplishments by by winning political seats, how far has that gone? The CDC at one point was majority; they had all the seats in government. What has been the outcome? Nothing. Nothing really substantial for the nation. They also spoke about no jobs. Partly I agree, but I also disagree. There are jobs in the country, but you fail to recognize them. You fail to acknowledge them. You fail to reward those kind of jobs that are in the country. Why? Because, as I said again, our government is conditioned in a way that only those who are rewarded in the country, who are respected in the country, are those who are defined within our Eurocentric, our kind of arrogant system of governance. That has been a problem. But this is why the Cummings, did I say Cummings? Forgive me, God. This is what a Gongloe-led government is going to do. And the brother said it rightly that the problem is the economy. But in case of him discussing how the economy is going to be, he ran to electricity. Okay. Ellen Johnson provided electricity. We are still here. Samuel Doe provided electricity. We are still here. Torba provided electricity, and we are still in the same rigmarole system. So electricity is not really the problem. It is the economy. It is the incompetence that is in government. The economy is not being well managed. And this is what we're going to do.
Right, that's what I want you to get to.
And I'm coming there. I wish you could give the Gongloe's platform an entire hour to discuss these things here. Dennis, we already have engines of economy in our country. But what have they served? And I'm not saying that they are sufficient. So the first priority is first, we're going to repurpose, redefine, recalibrate those various economic engines and institutions. We are talking about places like the port authorities. This is a country with ports, but yet still we do not realize how much these institutions are contributing to our nation. You have your forestry industry. What does it bring? Today, the Roberts International Airport, an instrument that's supposed to be used as a financial engine of the nation, bringing in needed funds, is still a lame duck institution. It's unable to provide its own electricity. Dennis, this is the solution. Empower that the RIA so that it can become a more vibrant institution. Hire more competent, independent people and give them the task that, look, Mr. RIA, Governors Association, or whatever, your goal here is to empower yourself, is to create an economy, is to bring money to this institution so that you can finance yourself, so that you can expand. We don't need two fleets, two planes landing on Roberts International Airport in this
Dave, may I interject? And I want you to end quickly. My question to you was, Ms. Councillor Gongloe is late to the game, and he's coming from behind. Since 2005, nobody who is behind like Gongloe as being able to make any significant impact. And so people are saying go number 2 to Boakai, go number 2 to Cummings, and number 2 all over the place.
And and I think the reason is that like what Sharif said, Mr. Sharif said, and he can close his eyes because there's no difference. There is no difference. But we believe that with solid ideas, sound ideas, fundamental ideas that are going to elevate the Liberian nation, the Liberian people. If the Liberian people get to know those ideas and how we're going to implement those kind of ideas, and that these ideas are new, they are applicable, and they are capable of lifting this country, people will gravitate towards the Gongloe's ticket. It's the matter of informing the Liberian people that for too long your country has been led down because of the people that have gone to this country, because of the kind of ideas that have been introduced in this. And hopefully we will be able to get the attention of the Liberian people. But we are not also
thank you, Dave. I have to
that we cannot participate with other people. Maybe our ideas are going to that we will generate will encourage them to also side with us. So we are open. But this kind of openness, Dennis, we want for these new ideas, these new aspirations, these well-proven ideas that can live the Liberian people. That is,
thank you.
And this is what we're going to do. So we are not, it doesn't matter. Usain Bolt can sometimes come from the back and overtake the rest of the people. It's about new ideas. It's about solid ideas. It's about ideas that are going to elevate the Liberian people and the Liberian nation. And we
we may have time to bring you back because we want to go to Mr. Cooney now. Mr. Cooney, there are issues in the country. One of the trending issues now is the death of a young lady, Princess Cooper. And this is that is not all. Before that, there was the death of another girl, and as many people say in Liberia, unexplained death. What is going on here? What is the government doing about it? And I will ask the other panelists what their government can do differently when it comes to this, when it comes to security and when it comes to justice, because police cannot be everywhere, at all times. But at least if this is done, we can investigate and bring the perpetrators to justice. So on the issue of justice and security, what is the government doing?
Well, Dennis, I've stated a couple of points, but maybe let me start with the question that you asked. The series of unexplained deaths in our country are actually a concern. They are a concern to all of us, and I want to believe they are a concern to the government. I'm a law enforcement officer, professional. The police is not expected to be everywhere all the time. And it is not the expectation of the police to solve every crime. But I think some crime, the police should be able to solve some crimes. And I think the reason why this is concerning to most Liberians is that almost all of these high-profile deaths, our people have not been given the benefit of a clear explanation. And that is concerning. You see, I support the government, but I do not support the ineffectiveness that are found in other agencies of government. I do not support corruption. I do not support the ineffectiveness that is at the Rawa International Airport. I can tell you on the day that I arrived at the airport, just 1 week, just 1 hour after my plane landed, the light went off. And these are things that we need to call on the functionaries of these entities, to really express our outrage. Because when they do that, they undermine the very government that we support. So going back to the death of the high-profile death, I really do think that the government need to do more. The government need to do more. The Liberian people deserve some explanation. It cannot be that every death go unsolved, that we cannot give a rational explanation for every death that occur in a country. So on that count, I mean, that's my sincere opinion. I think law enforcement is lacking in this area, and law enforcement need to do more. But having said that, having made those points, let me respond to the other things. When I hear some members of the opposition speak, the only thing I hear is the problem that faces our country. And they're not in government. So sometimes I don't even want to hear, I don't even want to ask the question, what will you do? But you see, if you're not in government, we'll follow your record. We follow your record, we'll follow your activities. You hear people in the opposition, they say they're going to build the country, they're going to do better than what the current government is doing. These are the same people that cannot even put a simple coalition together. They can't. They can't put a simple coalition together. Just 4 parties coming together is a challenge. And it is fight and counter-fight, it's suits and lawsuits. So we are led, having not knowing their accomplishment, we are led to ask, how are they going to put the country together? I hear my brother Dave Jal talking about repurposing. And let me state here, Councillor Gongloe is a man that I respect very much. I respect him. He's a very decent Liberian. He's a patriot Liberian. But here is a councillor that wants to become president of Liberia. We are asking, what has he done or what did he do to rebuild the Liberian People's Party? He had 12 years. You have a disintegrating organization, but you say you can make our country whole. So I'm just saying, in the absence of you, we're looking at things, we're looking at records. We're looking at records. I mean, the Liberian People's Party is in shambles, but you're saying that you have the skill to repurpose. Why were the Liberian People's Party not repurposed during the past 12 years? As we speak, the party doesn't even have a functional headquarters in Monrovia. Nobody knows the party chairman. Is always in dispute. So these things, to borrow again, we'll all borrow from Mr. Cummings, even though he doesn't live by that. We look at previous behavior to understand, future behavior. We look at current behavior to predict what will happen in the future. You can build your own party, but you criticizing, gun blazing, that everything that happened in Liberia, you're going to fix it. So the mere recitation of the ills in the Liberian society is not a sufficient condition for anybody to win the Liberian presidency. You have to come up with a message. You have to come up with something that will be inspiring to the Liberian people. And up to this point, we're not saying that. I'm sad that the Unity Party person left. You have the Unity Party that put itself in a collaboration, ran away from the collaboration, practically through the leadership of the Unity Party chairman, ran the collaboration to the ground. He fled from the collaboration, and he now says he's going to file a candidate in the local election against the very agreement that he signed. How can the Unity Party file a candidate in the local election? The only group that can file a candidate where the Unity Party will have an interest is the CPP. The CPP is still in effect. Until the document can be proven as fraudulent, the CPP document is the CPP document that holds the Unity Party together. So you find these people, they can't even live up to their own agreements. And all this thing is criticism, all kinds of dire prediction, and they give these very hopeful theory of what they would do.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings.
The question is, what are you doing now? What are you doing now for us to see that there is some credibility to what you say? And this is why I truly believe that, come 2023, the CDC will be re-elected, and will be re-elected massively. Massively.
I like the passion.
Thank you. I see that you give everybody a piece. I want to welcome Mr. Isaac Vatukba, the former COS.
I deserve a drink.
The former CEO of Mr. Cummings. Mr. Tukba, welcome to Tough Talking Thursday. It's better late than never. Mr. Lobo wanted you, so when Mr. Lobo saw Anthony Gay,
he ran.
That's why
he ran for Anthony.
He
Yeah,
said
like
he
me. Anytime you
cannot.
see me, you run.
He cannot be here with
No,
Anthony.
man,
So,
yo, come on, man. I don't know my picking Lobo to be a coward. You
He
stop.
yeah.
always does
So
that.
Isaac, here is the question for you. The collapse or the death or the disintegration of the CPP dashed the hopes of Liberians, many of whom saw a united opposition against President Weah as the way to go. What they looked at was the election of Darius Dillon, and that was the litmus test that a united opposition in the CPP would make Mr. Weah a one term. The CPP has fallen apart, and ALP, Unity Party, and Peace of the Liberty Party are all on their own. Why should Liberians trust any of those candidates who did not keep the CPP together to give them power? Why?
All right, great question. But before I get into that question, let me just trash the stuff that Wilma was just talking about. It's not like a joke for him to make an analogy of opposition parties now holding together with running the country. Those are two like totally opposite situations. You can't even liken them. When you hold governmental power, you have significant influence on every direction in the country. And we can see it happening now. Those are downward direction that this government is driving the country. But you can see that it does not matter in terms of, whether you're collaborating with some opposition party or not. No, that's not the issue. The issue is governance, and it's a separate, complete issue. We're trying to put a coalition together where everybody has, a desire to be a presidential candidate. When in a governance situation, it's clear who's the head, who's the president, who's the arrowhead, who's leading the country. So let me squash that first. To address your question, I believe the Liberian people need to look at themselves. Like recently, Lehman Bull wrote an article, and she's very hopeful that the Liberian people will not allow the M in masses to drop, that they will be considered the rest of the world in this particular situation when 2023 comes around. So the reality is the CPP is still existing. The CPP may have had a couple of parties that left, the Unity Party and the ALP. The constitutionally established and approved Liberty Party by the National Election Commission is still within the CPP. The ANC is still within the CPP. So let's recognize that as an established political coalition that's still viable, and according to its framework document, has the opportunity to attract any other political parties to join them. So let's keep that in mind. Now, talking about the departure of the Unity Party and the ALP, contrary to the precepts or tenets of that particular framework document, and which is currently in the Code of Law, trying to not the Code of Law, before the National Elections Commission, they tried to kick the case out, but the National Election Commission rejected the Unity Party complaint and denied it. So there will be a hearing, and they will have that discussion around whether they can carry a candidate. But probably they got saved by the bell, right? Because they just supposedly have formed a new alliance, the Democratic Alliance or whatever that is. So they may still be able to field Joseph Boakai as a candidate under a different name. It won't be Unity Party. So maybe that's their solution. But the Liberian people should understand that there are people who really desire to be president because they want to serve the country. Maybe Joseph Boakai is one of them. So he was running away from the whole issue of a primary, and they decided to split and bring a false accusation of bogus case, as we can see right now with the Solicitor General. I mean, really embarrassingly, extracting information from the text messages and printing a page that excludes July 2nd to July 19th key text information that shows Mr. Cummings consistently engaging them, informing them every step of the way. The final document, Tito Momo is there responding. The process of signature acquisition that Mo Ali will go around to collect the signature. All that information is there. They excluded it intentionally, and they want to pretend the Solicitor General should be in jail today. I don't know what kind of judicial system we have that cannot hold corrupt practitioners responsible, especially a Solicitor General whose role to defend the country or to prosecute is not to necessarily find people guilty, but to ensure the rule of law is applied, that justice is achieved. It's not his business, like he's doing flamboyantly around, running around here, releasing press releases and making all kind of noise. That's nonsense. That's not his role. His role is to ensure the right course of justice, and he's not doing that. He's actually avoiding and averting and trying to utilize his position to change the course of justice, to find innocent men guilty simply to prove a point, or to eliminate the strongest opposition figure against President Weah.
Yeah.
So we are telling the people, the Liberian people, you're listen, okay? At the end of the day, we know this will not be a first round thing. It will be 2 rounds. So if you are convinced that the opposition holds that, and the opposition come together, come and vote for whichever opposition figure is in the second round with President Weah. If you
Mr.
believe
Topa,
your life is
Mr.
better and coming on the next 6 years, where many people are, prophesying doom for this country if President Weah was to retain the presidency, then go vote for President Weah. It's an option. It's an
Mr.
option that
Topa.
the Liberian people, we have to teach them to understand the critical aspects of being responsible citizens, of understanding how to vote, understanding how to select a candidate, and their own obligation to their country, the patriotism for the country to go in the right direction. So
Mr.
this
Topa.
is not something that's forced. This is
Mr.
something
Topa.
that the Liberian people have to wake up to. They have to be cognizant of, and everybody who's listening or who watches all these different
Mr. Topa,
talk
Mr.
shows.
Topa, let me interject.
Yeah, I'm coming. They should wake up
Yeah.
to the
I want you
reality
to redirect
that
you
we
to my
will move the
question.
country forward.
Right. My question is, Mr. Cummings and Mr. Boakai in particular could not hold the CPP together. Their major difference made the CPP
No.
to
Don't blame
collapse.
Mr. Cummings. No, it's wrong to blame Mr.
Hold on,
Cummings.
let
Mr.
me
Boakai was the
finish. I'm
head.
laying the premise of my question. You can answer it.
Okay.
So here is a situation where the CPP has broken apart, and you still want Liberians to believe that these people who could not hold 4 parties together will be able to hold the country. Should they trust them to vote for them? That's my
Again,
question.
it's 2 different scenarios: holding a country together and trying to build a coalition where everybody wants to be president. That's 2 different things. You cannot make that analogy. You
Which
fall into
one
the
is
same
easier?
fallacy like Weah just did, and that's what I'm
Which-
trying to explain to you. It's
which one is
a
easier?
false premise you are moving with. And besides, 2 persons left. There's no requirement our coalition must hold. Okay? People want to be presidential candidates, and they feel, especially in the case of Joseph Boakai, that opportunity was not available within the CPP for him to run in a primary against Mr. Cummings. He felt his hopes were going to be dashed. They were insecure. You know for a fact, if they had agreed to the black voting, that they brought that nonsense that nobody, even countenance, then he would still be in the CPP. So obviously, the reason for him leaving the CPP is basic: his inability to compete with Mr. Cummings in a fair situation. That's why he left.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sherry, let me
If
go
I
to
may,
you.
Mr. Jad,
Hold on,
if I may, 30
Anthony.
seconds.
Hold on,
Can
Anthony.
I just make a quick point?
Let me go to Mr. Sharif, because Mr. Sharif has consistently said if the CPP cannot hold together, I mean, he doesn't believe that there is a viable alternative. Mr. Sharif, what do you say to Mr. Topa? You are muted, Mr. Sharif, please.
I thought Dave will be leaving early, so why don't you go to Dave and then
Dave is leaving early now to be talking because he was leaving before
is
now.
he using that as a is
No,
that
no,
Dave,
no, I
Dave
got
excited
Yeah,
to
man.
see you, bro.
minutes
Is that a-
to break here.
Yo, man, I can't
Dave
go-
excited to see you on the show. Dave, not
I'm
leaving.
about to leave, guys.
Okay,
Is
Dave,
that a
if you are
ploy?
leaving, we'll give you 2 minutes to make your closing comments.
Oh,
Yo, man, I can't come over here.
there's no Como business here. Thank you very much, Mr. Sherry. I think my side is gradually winning you over. You see, Dennis, Mr. Topa is indirectly or maybe directly trying to blame the Liberian people for, to some extent, not knowing better, that they should open their eyes and all of that. My brother, this is the reason. If I went to the market to purchase maybe palm nuts, and I find that all the palm nuts on the table are all the same, what's the point of me leaving from this point all the way to point Y to look for the same partners. The Liberian people have seen through all these guys. They have tested them, they have heard them, and there's no difference. There's no much of a difference as to what they can produce for the Liberian people. Their platform can attest to that, and it's all about style. It's about personality. It's not real about genuine change. And I ask people, like, what do you think is the major difference between a Weah's government to a Dole's government, to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's government, to even Torbert's government? It's all about the differences in platitudes and not really structural and fundamental differences. And this is why the Liberian people don't have even difficulties in choosing. They go to the pool, and whoever they vote for is going to produce the same outcome. But this is why I'm saying a paradigm shift is needed in Liberia that will repurpose government. I heard my brother Kuni talking about building rural housing and all of that. For your information, brother Kuni, you can build rural housing if you took a man from a thatched house and you put him in a concrete house. The only thing that you have changed is you have relocated that person. Maybe you gave him a little bit of a comfort for a few days, but that comfort will eventually wear away. Why? Because you have put him into another category that opens a new set of problems. It won't make any difference. Any housing without an income is useless. You can sustain it, my dear brother. It's like giving a broke man a car to drive. He can't even afford gas. So what Gongloe is going to do is to revisit our economic engines, create an economy that caters to every Liberian, even the people that you don't consider as workers, the farmers, the weavers, the folklorists. Those people, I ask people, where do you have the most unemployed rate in Liberia? In the cities. Where do you have the most employed? The rural parts. You go to any rural place today, you enter the town at about 8 o'clock, you will not see anybody. What are they doing? They're not playing around. They are working. But your government do not regard those people. We're going to bring them into the fold. We're going to give them values, because these are African workers. These are Liberian workers. We will do that. We will revisit these various concessions agreements. We will go and take a complete inventory of our natural resources. What does gold account for in that country? You claim to have diamonds in your country, but you don't account for any of that in your national economy. Guys, and my brother Cummings was talking about the funding to build roads. And let me inform you, there are fundings in that country. With proper leadership.
Dave, you want to conclude now? So
with proper leadership, my brother, you can raise billions of dollars in that country. We just need people with the right ideas, with the right aspirations, with the competence and the discipline that will stop corruption. And I said that a Gongloe's government will persecute itself to stamp out corruption, to stamp out the spirit of nepotism, and all forms of corruption. We will fight against them, so as to make sure that our resources are well utilized in that country. And this is where the paradigm is going to shift. And the Liberian people will have a real choice to make. And they will not just close their eyes and say, okay, ANC, Unity Party, or whatever. But now we have a genuine choice to make. And that lies in the Liberian People's Party of Tiawan Gongloe, which Mr. Kuni trying to shamelessly try to indict about that function. But let me tell you, Mr. Kuni, In these modern eras, you don't have to operate only on headquarters. There is something that we call what? The World Wide Web. We can operate in those kind of dimensions. The Liberian People's Party is still functioning. The reason why you don't know is because you have left the fold.
Thank you.
And that's
Thank you,
why.
Dave. Your
Okay.
30 seconds for your closing.
Okay. So, guys, look, I appreciate the passion that we all have for our country. I respect that. Mr. Weah is trying the best that he can. That's his ceiling. He cannot do more than he can do. Okay, that's what he was taught. That's what he has learned. The brother doesn't have that much experience. He's trying the little that he think he can do. He think by building houses where people don't even pay taxes, where he doesn't. He himself, if we are knew that people can pay taxes on all these houses, he won't be able to deny for himself. but that's what he learned to do. So, my folks, my dear brothers, I hope we'll have sisters at another point in time. My dear brothers and sisters, and all Liberians in all walks of life, we are presenting a clear alternative. Somebody who has lived the Liberian dreams and the Liberian nightmares. Someone who has experienced the chaos of our country. Somebody who has committed himself to serving the Liberian people, going to jail, being flogged by Charles Taylor and his rebels, and this guy continuing to stand for the Liberian people. The discipline that he exudes, the confidence he exudes, Liberians, I know we want to create a Liberia where everybody will have a role to play.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? It will not just be in Monrovia. So by you all supporting the Gongloe's ticket, it does not mean that you are not a winner. Everybody in that country will have a place and will be respected in their own country.
Thank you.
This is our dream. This is our aspiration, and we are fully committed to that. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I hope I have another time to meet with all these decent people so that we can share and exchange our ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dave, for coming. At this time, we go to Mr. Mohammed Sharif, who is going to talk about the collapse of the CPP and why or what Liberia should or should not trust those.
Mr. Ja, you give Mr. Chevy you a time to Mr. Ja, your brother. So
I want to call Mr. Sharif to come back.
Okay.
Mr. Sharif, go ahead, please.
So the problem that we have, and I insist, is that the opposition has not made a difference. They have not shown, they've not manifested what they are going to do differently. So, for example, you mentioned the collapse of the CPP. That is something that, and that's something that Wilma is constantly knocking them for, and rightfully so. Mr. Cooley mentioned this, and rightfully so. So, this is a structure. So if you wanted to show to the Liberian people that you're serious about governance, the CPP structure was, to me, the beginning of that process. I've mentioned that the CPP structure still exists. Yeah, so within that legal framework, but as it stands, what do you have? You have a shell of a structure. So it was unacceptable to me that they couldn't even hold together. And in the midst of that, no one showed leadership. So, for example, the former vice president, didn't show any leadership. None of these guys show any leadership. So they all bicker about what the ultimate goal was. Ultimately, the two individuals, the top two contenders, and that is the bottom line. The top two contenders will not cede. The other one will not concede to the other. So this other one cannot go as the other person's vice president. This other one cannot go as the other person's vice president. And they all had, and within the coalition, they all had their own ideas of who they want to pick as a vice presidential candidate. So you have a lot of things in play for which they couldn't even compromise. So for me, it's not acceptable. And if this is how you're going to govern, then what is the difference between you and the person currently sitting in the executive mansion? So there is no difference to me. So that's number one. Number two, the leadership of George Weah has given each and every day. George Weah continues to give the opposition bulletin board materials. I mean, he is bulletin board material every single time this government, every single time he opens his mouth or he does something, is meet for the political opposition. They do not take advantage of these of these opportunities. Something at the top of the show, a question you asked about, the mysterious disappearances, the mysterious death all across the country. It just didn't start all of a sudden. We've had that for quite some time now. So to me, what is the opposition going to do differently to ensure that there is security not just in Monrovia and other urban cities, but in rural towns? Dennis, you're not hearing about rural villages because the news outlets are not out there. It's happening in rural towns as
Right.
well. People are
It
disappearing,
just
people are
happened
dying.
in Maryland, right?
That is exactly right. So
Mm.
it's because the news outlets are not busy out there. So you hardly hear of these things. So I want to hear the opposition's position on these issues and what they're going to do differently. Yes, there needs to be investment in anti-crime, anti-violence. There needs to be investment in that. The city of Philadelphia, for example, Dennis, just the mayor just proposed a budget of 100, over 200, within the city proposed budget, over 200 $1 million for anti-violence and related issues around anti-violence. So that goes to show you how serious the city government is to fighting violence. So when you see a person's budget, you will be able to tell how serious they are. Or in the case of the Liberian opposition, if you see their proposal, you see what they're conveying to the Liberian people each and every day, you know how serious they are. But they are not serious. You don't hear much from them. What do you hear from the opposition? What is so someone can someone tell me right now, with the young girl, with the young lady that's missing, what has been the opposition's position statement on that issue? Besides position statement, what effort have they made to ensure that they're holding George Weah's and his government feet to the fire? You're not going to see it. What are they doing to ensure that the economy is working for everybody, that unemployment, uh, which is really at an all-time high, that something is being done about it to alleviate the plight of the Liberian people? So there's nothing the opposition is doing to show us the independence any difference from them and the guy sitting in the executive mansion. And that is the trouble that we're having. Now, make no mistake, I still think that in terms of restoring some sort of some level of integrity to the office of the presidency, so any of these guys in the opposition will be better than Weah. I mean, they're not going to go out there, releasing records and all of that stuff. They're going to be serious guys, right? So these guys are going to be serious. They're not going to go around, playing basketball and soccer all over the place every single day, right? They are going to be serious. But it's more than that. The presidency is more than that. The presidency brings on many, many, many challenges. So what are you going to do? What are the revolutionary steps that you are going to take to improve the living condition of the Liberian people? And I think that is what is missing. That is the simple thing that they can do, is to have an efficient communication system, which the opposition doesn't have. I am shocked that they don't have any communication system to convey their thoughts And ideology, well, they don't have any ideology. So forget ideology. These guys don't have any ideology at all. So I'm just looking for a means where they can communicate to the Liberian people. Who's
Thank
going
you.
to go to Kalipo and convey it to these people in Kalipo? Who's going to go to Wapo and convey to these people what the opposition is going to do differently? Do you see that? I don't see that. I'm not talking about.
Let's bring in Anthony Gay. Maybe he sees that. Anthony.
Mr. Sherry, my brother, not because you did not see our position statement or our statement about the deceased lady, may her soul rest in peace, then that doesn't mean that mean it didn't happen. I'm sorry. He's the only political leader or standard bearer who put out a statement. The second time I saw the opposition put out a statement was today, or the COP put out a statement today. So because you did not see it, that doesn't mean it did not happen, sir. So please do our favor. Say, I hope they will do that, or I'm wondering if they did. But don't give a definitive statement to do so, because you are on a very credible platform. And I have so much respect for you, and I wish you have not said that. But anyway, there's always a learning curve. Yes, Mr. Cummings put out a statement. He even kind of called all the names of those victims, up to 20 names in that particular statement. I asked Mr. Deneja, asked your producer tonight, Mr. Asunis, to put out that statement, so portion of it can be read on the show, right? So Mr. Cummings did put out a statement regarding the circumstances of the deceased lady, Princess Cooper. Unfortunately, and the reason why I'm trying to come in is that let us be clear and fair here when we try to criticize. You can't put everybody together and say the opposition did not do anything. Mr. Cummings was not the chairman at the time of the CPP, breakdown. The famous interview with BBC with the former vice president told the Liberian people in the world that upon his return to Liberia, he will resolve the CPP issue.
Right.
BBC held him to that account. He gone back to Liberia. Where is it today? I mentioned earlier that each one of them were given 8 months term.
Yeah, Mr. Boakai said Mr. Cummings refused to come to the meeting.
That is not true. Mr. Cummings attended a couple of meetings where Mo Ali, Mr. Cummings even mentioned that on Spoon Talk, where Mo Ali was in attendance. Mr. Ja, it is easy to shift blame on people. But when the responsibility is not taken by the individual who's supposed to take the responsibility, even the exit statement by the United Party, blame the ANC instead of them telling the Liberian people why they were exiting the CPP. Go read a speech. Go read a speech or watch that speech again. All Mr. Boakai said, or former Vice President Boakai said, was the ANC, ANC, ANC. He did not give a clear reason why he was pulling out. Again, under Mr. Cummings' leadership of the CPP, we saw a vibrant, more viable CPP. Each one of them were given the opportunity. They all were given the opportunity to stay. When Weah left in office, he did not turn over a single document to say, yes, what I did in the past 8 months. When Mr. Cummings was turning over it, on the other hand, he chronicled everything he did in the chronological order and said, I did X, Y, and Z, and turn over all the documents. Told Yambli Kanga on camera. We all saw it. We got the video to prove, right? When Madam Yambli Kanga Lawrence came into office, Senator Lawrence came into office, we saw the downward spiral. So the Liberian people have had the opportunity to have seen all those 4 leaders steer the affairs of the CPP. They themselves, at this present now, can see where the trouble lies. Mr. Cummings, who never worked in government, exercised his leadership role, and the Liberian people saw why. I'm sorry, Brother Dave left, but it is very important to point out that yes, indeed, what Mr. Cummings did needs to be talked about, because they said he had no governmental experience. He's a inexperienced politician. He just coming to the political front. Someone even said he should wait for him time. Let me sound the alarm. There is no such thing called seniority in politics. If that was the case, Barack Obama would not be president of this United States, because the current president, Joe Biden, told him he's a young kid on the block, don't understand politics on the debate stage. But guess what? He walked his way through. Mr. Cummings embraced the challenges of the CPP, knowing full well he was the underdog. But guess what? He did not give in. When the opportunity was afforded him, he led as a leader. Honorable Boakai let us down, let the Liberian people down, let everybody down because he's the man of wisdom. I personally questioned him in Philadelphia on the issue of character. I said, if anything you beat your chest about is character, character, character. He ran away from that question. He didn't answer my question. You know why? You can't speak of character and a man who is the face of your campaign is immoral, has no integrity, and you want to talk about character. So here is what we have to offer as the ANC. Mr. Cummings is a trained financial expert, has a proven record of managing billions, not millions, but with a B. He also said on the debate stage 2017 that you raise the national budget to $1 billion or $2 billion to be able to compensate for the current challenges of the country. He spoke about education, not just academic, but vocational training. Vocational training. We also talk about agriculture. Giving the Liberia, he gave a timeline in that 5 minutes video that within his first term, Liberian will be food sufficient, that will be able to feed our own self. Today, 95% of the rice sold on the market in Liberia imported. An estimated over $200 million is spent annually on rice import alone, when rice is our staple food. He said, based on what he will implement in 6 years' time, Liberia will no longer depend on foreign import. Guess what? That is a national security issue right now for Liberia. If the country stops sending rice to Liberia, we will die. Our people will starve to death. That's a serious national security issue. So we have that pact, and we are ready to lead. Mr.
Dennis, if you permit,
and the political X factor of Liberia. No co-election, no collaboration. Vote of Mr. Cummings currently today in Liberia can beat President George Weah without Mr. Cummings. That is clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Cooney. Mr. Cooney, Mr. President Weah is the one, he's the incumbent, and definitely he's going to pay against any one of these for what people see as second round. But he's going to go against all these candidates. Mr. Boakai stated when the CPP was together that he's the only one to defeat President Weah. Which of the candidates represented on stage tonight, Councillor Gongloe, Mr. Boakai, or Mr. Cummings, pose the biggest threat to President Weah in your view? And what advantage do you think President Weah had over that candidate?
Well, look, listen, Dennis, I think I will use this question to address a number of issues. Earlier, if you can recall, on this platform, I used to say that the CCP, the collaborating political parties, in my opinion...
Dennis, you got to correct the man. CPP, not CCP. CCP, that Russian team.
The CPP.
Thank you.
In my opinion, I thought that Mr. Cummings was the strongest candidate among them. And when I made that point at that time, people thought that I was being a propagandist for CDC. But, Mr. Cummings entered the Liberian political environment and with a lot of stuff that, start to give people hope. When he talked about some of his famous quote that we usually cite on this show, you can't do the same thing over and over, all of this stuff, it began to give people hope. But then over time, I started to be concerned with Mr. Cummings' decision-making. Again, like I said, if you never served in government before, the only thing we can do is to assess and evaluate how you are making decisions. I wasn't surprised because Mr. Cummings grew in a corporate world. So in the corporate world, everything is about profit. And I think Mr. Cummings saw the Liberian presidency as some kind of a corporate reward. So he could do anything to get that reward. He started recruiting. Disappointingly, the first chairman of the ANC under Mr. Cummings was Mr. Gould, who was with the CDC. I found a problem with that. And then as he went on, even my own brother here, Ava, joined Mr. Cummings' leadership. The question is, if Mr. Ava was in the CDC government currently, would he have left the CDC government to join the ANC?
I will have resigned already.
Well, yeah, you can say that, but the evidence of the so many people that are in the CDC that have not left up to this point doesn't seem to support that. So the problem I had with Mr. Cummings, he was starting his political career by bringing together grievance people that had grievances. It is a different thing when somebody leaves a political party on the ground of principle to join you than people who have grievances. I make this point to say that, look, every political movement or every political leader must invest time to develop their political base. When the progressive entered the Liberian political space in the early 70s, they were not looking for a disillusion to reparty people. They were patient enough to build their base and to advocate for the ideas that they believe in.
True.
They were not looking for rejected true partisans or those who had grievances against the True Weak Party. Equally, even the CDC, before VAR left, when the CDC appeared on the Liberian political landscape, they built their own movement. There are many people in the CDC today in their political leadership that nobody knew. You know, the CDC didn't go to bring in people to bring them on board. They started with their own grassroots movement. But it looked like this lifting was very difficult for Mr. Cummings. So he started making poor decisions from his hiring, from the decision to join political collaboration. How do you join collaboration to a political party that just 4 years ago you were in opposition, you were trying to take that political party out of power? If you are not so desperate, if the Unity Party was wrong about 4 years ago, what had the Unity Party done in 4 years now to be a political buddy to Mr. Cummings? So the Liberian people started watching. And I'm one of those who came on the show and said that the man is a survivalist. He's not a leader. He calculated his chances at every point in time. All of the problems that they say wrong with the CPP, those problems have been there from the time Mr. Cummings was there. But he was always edging his bet. He will accommodate those things as long as it didn't affect his political chances. And now when he was about to be sacrificed by that system is when he decided to revolt.
Thank you.
So this is not a sign of leadership. This is not a sign of leadership. Mr. Boakai, I don't talk about him because I already said Boakai is a follower. Boakai does everything that Benena Yuri tells him to do. You know, he's a follower. So if you ask me of those the opposition on that side, I don't see any of them coming strong against Weah. While they are fighting among themselves, Weah is putting together a new type of coalition. The other political parties that do not, the other political parties that do not want to be involved with the CPP. Let my brother Valtubazi, I'm gonna call it the right way. The other political parties that want to be part with the CPP mess. The political leadership of George Manneh Weah is bringing that coalition together into a grand coalition. 6 political parties are moving in the direction of the CDC. No noise, nothing, leadership. And then the final point I want to make, because Val make that point. Yes, I agree with you. The government, if you're in government, you exercise a whole lot of power. That's true. But except you are telling us that the only thing the opposition government will rely on will be the use of brutal force to achieve what they want to achieve, then you can dismiss what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is in leadership, you should be able to inspire, you should be able to convince, You should be able to persuade. You should be able to find solutions. If you cannot do that in small organizations, and you say you're waiting for the big government that has an army and a police force before you do that, the fear now is that you are counting on brute political power to force people into compliance.
Thank you. Mr. Ava, are you there?
Let him come back.
Mr.
I think
Ava, are
coming
you
back.
there? All right. All right. Mr. Ava, I don't know what's the problem there.
You are in Liberia, you're suffering for data business. Why you think telling
No,
like
I don't
that?
think that's the issue.
In Liberia?
Man, in
Man, yeah.
Liberia, why you think telling like that? You don't suffering for data business?
Mr. Ava, I think you heard Mr. Cummings, Mr. Cooney. But here's my question. I want you to respond to Mr. Cooney. But here's my question for Mr. Cummings. You see that he's everything that is happening to him now is coming from people that he worked with, his allies, people that he was in alliance with. We saw the COP leader, Mr. Henry Costa, bashed him. I remember when Mr. Cummings became the head of CPP, those were the people that he ran to say, let's work together. And they were all friends, buddy. We saw Mr. Costa bashing him for almost a year. I mean, using all kinds of derogatory terms. Mr. Costa also asked the Unity Party to get out of the coalition. Mr. Cummings is now in court by his own colleagues, who sued by his own colleagues, Mr. Benani Ure. And the case is, he's being bogged down in this case. Even if he's trying to visit his sick mother, he cannot do that freely without getting permission from the court. Let's wait and see during the election, during the campaign. Even if he has to go to my own county signer, he needs permission. And so he found himself in a situation that he himself more or less created, because these were his buddies. And now I see that Mr. Boakai, because I live here in Atlanta, and Mr. Cummings, they were all here. In fact, it was Mr. Boakai who recommended to our Lama leadership that Mr. Cummings be on the advisory board, because Mr. Boakai has donated $10,000 for our community center. So these are all friends. Now he's bogged down, he's in court. If colleagues are leaving, did Mr. Cummings bring this upon himself? And what does that say about his decision making?
Again, you're trying to manufacture stuff on Mr. Cummings. You cannot control people. These are independent political institutions and individuals. So what's the manufacturing there? The manufacturing is all the stories you're trying to line up. They don't align. I'm sorry, Dennis, but let me just go back first to Mohammed and let him know that I don't think he understands the role of the opposition. It's just pathetic that he would expect the opposition to create jobs, to provide social safety net for a government that's not functional. No, you should be criticizing the government. You are in that city of Philadelphia. I guess that's where you were, because that's where you use a reference. You should understand how government works. The Democratic Party, when they were in opposition, or today the Republican Party, they're not providing social services for nobody in Philadelphia. They're not providing job creation opportunities. That's not their role. You see what the role is. So let's not try to attribute things that are not, particular to the whole democratic space for an opposition to what this opposition should be doing is wrong. You are wrong in terms of what Mr. Cummings' position is on these issues. He takes issue, like Anthony said, because you didn't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Because you didn't hear a tree fall in the forest didn't mean the tree didn't fall. So stop doing these like summary, assumptions that don't apply. Try and ask one of us on a panel or any ANC person, or just do a little bit of research. Go to Mr. Cummings' page, his Facebook page, and you will see all his commentary on what's happening in the country and everything. So let's not make those assumptions. Coming to your point about further, yes, this Weah government, every day they create something for us to talk about. Look at the nonsense Margaret did, giving $100,000 to Eula and Cummings. You should be one of the first person rejecting that $100,000, but you sit down here and making it look like that's something decent on the part of this government to try to buy a dead organization. Eula is a dead, outdated organization. They need to really disband and recreate a new union of Liberian associations that's functional, that impacting Liberians in the U.S. and trying to make a difference with Liberians in the in Liberia itself. Because we know ULA is not functional, they're not proper. So many people trying, unfortunately, they're not trying enough to make a difference for the Liberian community. So you know that very well. So let's focus on you were saying people leave on. Yes, I left on principles. I left a whole year before I even joined the ANC. I left because this government was not functional. From the very inception of this Weah government, they went the wrong way. We came to make a difference and create the opportunity for every Liberian to have an affordable living. We're happy. They started buying houses, buying land, building new buildings, stealing money. You think that map up situation with any legitimate central bank function to use $20 million to come map up what? Map up what? They already stole some of the currency and cannot account for the infusion of 16 billion into the economy. Then they will steal money again to say they're mapping it up. Come on, man. Those are principal things that we left the CDC for. And you cannot stop anybody from exercising the democratic privilege of being able to associate with any other organization. Tell people because they were another party before, so they cannot join other parties or they cannot recruit those people to become. People have the right to associate, to join any organization they want. So don't try to step on people's democratic rights and make it look like an intimidating factor when you're talking about participation in the political landscape. That's one. So yes, Mr. Cummings, desperate for change, you're right. The desperation the country is facing today is terrible. The way people are living is extremely terrible. And you know that, Wilma. You know the conditions of people in Liberia is horrible. So we cannot sit here and say nobody should not want to lead who can make a change in the Liberian landscape, because Mr. Cummings has that ability. He has the expertise. He has the competency. He has the knowledge. He has the experience. So you cannot tell somebody like that who wants to make a difference for his country that just because he hasn't worked in government. What kind of government, what kind of solid experience do people have in the government of Liberia that you can count on, that you can even be any professional anywhere else today? You look around that entire government space today, which of them can leave on them and be very competitive anywhere in the world with their peers? None. It's sad, but that's the reality. We got a lot of incompetence in government today. So don't use that as a measuring stick of experience after 6 years of nonsense. Seriously, we cannot do that. Okay? So yes, Liberians are desperate because they believe that if we give Weah another 6 years, our country will topple over. We at the right at the border of the precipice to fall down or slope or negative sliding slope. And our economy cannot continue to go in that direction. Our governance system cannot go in there where people, you were just talking about the incompetence of the police and the government to solve these murder cases. Not one. People are dying. People are fearful. People are scared. And they're harassing people and following them and chasing them. What kind of government you have cannot protect and secure its citizens? That's sad. Okay? And then you talk about this new coalition Weah is building. If you look at it combined, 2011 and 2017 numbers for those 6 or 5 political parties, they reached 40,000 votes. They're up for 2 elections. And then that's something we should write home or be sad about. No. We built coalition. There are many political parties up there with strength, especially the LPP, that I see kind of align with the ANC in terms of ideology, in terms of principles, in terms of good governance. So we welcome somebody like Otewan Gongloe to work with us well and question any day. And we look out there for other political parties that have the same kind of vision for Liberia that Mr. Cummings has. So Mr. Chevy talking about political parties not showing enough.
Mr.
Okay?
Tupa, is that the same vision that ALP had, for which Mr. Cummings went into alliance with ALP?
No, you see, Dennis, when you come into a situation, not everybody is aligned with your vision. That's just the reality.
All
okay?
Right, go ahead.
Whether on paper or whether in practice, not everybody's aligned. But if you guys say you're starting something new and we work together, you make all these promises, you put these things on paper, you commit to certain principles that we'll stay together. If we leave, we'll not feed candidates in our own name. Before we leave, we'll go through a dispute resolution mechanism to make sure that our organizations have gone through the required steps to exit this CPP and not just run away from the CPP like these 2 parties did. You know, if people can do that, then you understand that they have lost certain things. But that does not mean there cannot be a renewed relationship. No, anything is possible in politics. We just got to recognize that. And to a large extent, sometimes people don't keep their word. every day. And that's why we have systems. That's why we have institutions of integrity that's going to hold people to the words. Typically in Liberia, unfortunately, contracts don't hold because people just violate it with impunity because the system is one that feeds on impunity, that feeds on that person with more money at that point in time that can buy the decision. So those are some of the things that Mr. Cummings brings to the table in terms of changing, because his word is his bond. You saw his leadership over the CPP and how successful it was in the election in December 2020. He led, he supported, he encouraged. When he had to crack the whip, he cracked the whip. And that 8 months of leadership in the CPP were very successful. It was the model that we expected to come forward with. What happened? Jumbly comes to leadership, everything deteriorates. You can hardly call a good meeting. So you can hardly take a position in issue. Boakai comes, it gets worse. He makes a false promise that he will hold the CPP together and everything. What happens? Because his chances of winning in a CPP by, primary was, close to zero. He ran away. They brought all kind of funny stuff. So in terms of the substance of Mr. Cummings' vision and the ANC vision, it's clear. We want to build a 21st century Liberia that has a space for everybody. It's a big tent. Okay? Underline that. We have to no, let me thank you, Dennis, because we're talking about what the ANC has to offer. We got to change the mindset of our people. That's one of the most critical things. And Dennis, I think you have a huge
Dennis, I need to respond. This is going on for so long. It's going on for 20 minutes.
Hold on, Sheriff.
Right? And everybody, we all have that responsibility to change the mindset of our people, because we have some very negative mindsets. We engage each other the wrong way. So we got to be able to depend on some fundamental construct like civics that we can use to educate our people, to enlighten our people, that we can all work together in a positive stand. Then when you come to his actual stuff, it's based on plugging the holes, stopping corruption, good governance. Those are essential. The accountability, the transparency that American people are whipping Weah and his government for today.
We have to reorganize this.
So I will not even get into the agriculture, the education, the job creation policies, or the healthcare situation with the ANC. Okay, we'll come back for another time.
We'll have a
solo show because
ANC, Unity Party, and CDC, and Mr. Lobo are waiting for you. So we're gonna organize
Mr.
that.
Mr. Lobo, I'm picking. And then
Mr. Sheriff,
I can Lobo
Mr. Sheriff, just 1 minute because we are way out of time.
Dennis,
Mr. Lobo, I want to be whooped by equal, so he want to be better. Take a say, but I'm be better.
Mr. Sheriff, 1 minute, please. We are way out of time.
Well, you can't say 1 minute. If the man just talked for 15 minutes and
well, you talk for 20, Mr.
all
Sheriff.
over the place.
You talk for 20, I responded.
When people are speaking, the problem is that when people are speaking, some people don't listen, right? So I don't think the brothers from the ANC listen enough. So they took half of the statement and went with it. So what I said was, and I can repeat it, so the opposition is not showing up, right? So what have they offered in terms of conveying, what message have they conveyed in the midst of unemployment, in the midst of violence? What message have they conveyed? They're not in, they're in the business of winning offices. What message have they conveyed? No message. So here's the thing. Here's the thing with the opposition with no backbone. Mr. Cummings showed that he had no backbones when he let Ava Toba, when he cut Mr. Toba because he wrote a book. And in that book, I don't think the book was all that bad, but Cummings had no backbones. So he let him go. So instead of focusing on the daily violence against women, the violence against individual Liberians, instead of taking that moment, seizing that moment to come down on the administration, what did Cummings do to him? What did Cummings do to Toba? He let him go. He cut him loose. So this is what we're talking about. He has no backbones. The second thing I have to say is that, yes, in their collaborating arrangement, none of them have shown leadership. They have not shown leadership. They have not shown to the Liberian people what they can do differently. And this is what I'm talking about. What is the alternative? I'm not saying that. So you have to listen. and you have the hubris to tell me to ask you a question. I don't need to ask you a question. I don't need to ask you about politics. I'm a very accomplished individual myself. So if you don't know that, so I don't need to ask you any question. That's hubris, and that's nonsense. So you guys come on here, defend your candidates, but you're not doing it in a way. You're doing it in a very dishonest way. You're dishonest about everything you're saying about your candidate. You have to be honest with the Liberian people if you're trying to win elected offices, but that's not what you're doing. So because you're not doing that, you're hurting your candidate more than you're helping your candidate. So you're not really helping your candidate. We're not seeing anything from Mr. Cummings in terms of everything that's going on. Yes, he may have issued a press release, but what is the solution? What is your solution about the violence that's going on? What is the alternative about the lack of employment? Everything that's going on in the country, violence, police brutality, disappearances. What is the solution? The astronomical debt crisis. What is Mr. Cummings' solution? Every single day, George Weah gives them bulletin board material to work with, but these guys cannot function. So they had to cut you loose because he's afraid of George Weah. He's afraid of people condemning him. He has no backbone. He exercised no leadership.
Thank you, Mr.
letting
Sheriff.
you go.
Thank you. Let me give Alva 45 seconds to respond to this so we can.
Yeah,
we are
quickly.
2 minutes away from closing.
Mr. Sheriff is speaking of things he doesn't understand.
I can respond.
Oh, my man, why you gotta respond, man? You're
Go,
going
Mr. Alva. We
you
almost
got
out of
no
time.
stake in the thing here, women. You just hanging on to a thread. Look, Mr. Sheriff probably has no Mr. Sheriff probably has no understanding of the issues or how people operate. I'm not here to distract from Mr. Cummings' effort. Mr. Cummings already had a court case. You want Mr. Cummings to respond to everything, but you still want him to deal with the situation I created. Don't come talk about Mr. Cummings. I think Mr. Cummings showed that he stands for certain things by saying, asking for my resignation, and me being honorable enough to realize that I cannot be a burden to him. I accepted it. That does not mean I don't support Mr. Cummings. That does not mean I'm not an ANC member. I'm a solid ANC member, and definitely my discussion here tonight demonstrates that. So you trying to talk about Mr. Cummings is spineless. No, Mr. Cummings is extremely strong. Mr. Cummings is a visionary. Mr. Cummings wants to make a difference. And on any day we can debate what Mr. Cummings' agenda is so you can understand. Because I don't think you seem to understand. You keep saying he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that, but you have not visited his page one day. Personally now, I will try to find your information and send you every time Mr. Cummings comes out and talk about issues and stuff. I will send it to you so you can understand how active Mr. Cummings is in the opposition space. He may not scream like some of the other people in the opposition, no, but he's fundamentally sound in the issues and he offers solutions. He has given economic suggestions here. He has given, neighborhood policing, increasing salaries of police officers, providing them with better equipment, training, look, just about everything he has offered in terms of suggestions
we really
to
need
these
a
holding
separate
people accountable. Just prosecute.
He may be, but he let you go. He cut you. He let you go.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Sheriff.
not
Don't
leadership.
interrupt,
But
please.
you try to make that
that's not leadership.
We're going to take a short break.
He cut you.
Let me 1 minute to respond.
He cut you. You have no backbone to do that.
No, hold on, guys.
It just sounds
Mr. Sheriff, no interruption.
He shouldn't
Mr.
have
Cooney,
cut you.
I have to be
I was
fair.
mad at that. He
1
shouldn't
minute
have
to
cut you.
respond.
That is the weakest. That is the
Hold on, Mr. Sheriff. Hold on, Mr. Sheriff. Hold on, Mr. Tokba. Mr. Cooney, 1 minute to respond, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to take 1 minute. I like my brother and myself. At least we agreeing to some point. Mr. Cummings is indeed desperate, but there is a problem with people who are desperate. If Mr. Cummings was so desperate to believe that he can form a political relationship with the like of people like Bernard Ure, with the like of people like Joseph Yima Boakai that misruled the country for 12 years, the question we ask, what is Mr. Cummings going to do with the full leverage of government power when he becomes desperate? I think it is a fair question to ask.
It's a fair
Someone
question.
who is desperate.
Yes.
Now, because he's desperate, every sense of rationality goes out of the window. So this is why we have concerns about his leadership. And don't say I don't have a stake in this game. I got a serious stake in this game. And then he talked about Eula. Look, If people really believe that ULA is a dead organization, why is somebody contributing to a dead organization creating this kind of concern? It's there already. So you think it's dead? Yeah, leave it.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
but they're
Cooney.
wasting the Liberian
But the
people
most
money.
important
They're
point,
wasting
the most important
$400,000,
point, no,
400,000 cash, 300,000
The
committed.
most important point, Mr. Vatoba was in the leadership of ULA. What did he do to make ULA alive? You know,
We
don't
tried
just
to
throw these
change ULA.
accusations
We gave
around.
suggestions.
You
You
were on a board.
refused.
You were
You
on a
refused.
board, ULA. You did not attend a single board meeting representing your
Oh my
community.
God! Look
All
at
right.
look at this.
Let's leave it right
No,
there.
seriously, you did not.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Thank you so much, and welcome back to Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday, and just by the time it gets tougher, we're about to close. But I promise you, I'm going to bring this gentleman back to argue from the perspective of their party's ideologies and their plans for the country. Mr. Cooney will also be here to defend the presidency of Mr. Weah and how he has improved the system so much that Liberians should take him for
Be very proud to do so.
you don't want to miss that. But at this time is fast spent, and we don't even have the time for comments and calls. We're going to go to our section, which we call the Tabata moment. If there's any Tabata which in the Southeastern language means nonsense, we want you to tell us your Tabata of the week. Your Tabata of the week is something that is so nonsensical that you can't even stomach it. Let's start with Mr. Anthony Gay for your Tabata of the week.
Well, Mr. Dennis, thank you for having me, and thank you to the very panelists and my senior brother Ava. Thank you for coming on here tonight. Listen, my Tabata of the week is the police spokesperson, Mr. Mose Carter, saying there's no foul play from the very onset of the investigation. A young lady is dead. No pathologists were called to do an autopsy to, clearly give out the cause of death of that young lady, and he flat out said no foul play. And later came back on yesterday. I think I heard the justice minister saying, what was said was, were taken out of context. No. It's your spokesperson who said that no foul play. I think the Liberian National Police need to take every Liberian citizen very important. One thing I've noticed through my travel, I see that Liberians don't take their citizens serious. What are you visiting the foreign mission, like the embassy or whatnot? You are treated like you're nothing. We must value our citizens. It's very important for you to come out a vibrant, young, promising lady. Life was cut short to tell the Liberian people that no foul play was found. That was the Tabata of the week for me.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif.
Yeah, so there was a group, Connie alluded to it somehow. There's a group of parties, right? A whole bunch of parties that they don't stand for anything, and they got together and they said they were endorsing George Weah or something, or forming coalition with George Weah. Like, these people stand for nothing, right? I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of it. Okay, they got together, names I've never heard. Oh, I'm the chairman for so-and-so. I'm chairman for so-and-so. I'm chairman. And now they're building coalition. You know who they are? They are job seekers. They are looking for jobs. They want to be directors. They want to be deputy directors. They want to be assistant ministers. So now they're saying that they are forming coalition with the CDC. They're all a bunch of job seekers. Nonsense.
Mr. Cooney.
Well, the Tabata of the week really is what occurred this week, Saturday, at the ULA inauguration. There are so many people that when they look at ULA, they see ULA as a permanent opposition to the government. And they blame ULA for all the problems in Liberia. It is the union that take all the people in Liberia to fight war, to do this, to do that. when the union tried to engage the government of Liberia to work in a collaborative manner on behalf of the Liberian people, the very people they come to the union, they say the union is a compromise. It's compromise. And that, so this Saturday we saw the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs coming and affirming the desire of the government to work closely with ULA. And everybody, all of a sudden, they've seen crime, they've seen the union being sold, even people who never supported the union before, people who don't even know the integrity of people who are leading the union, everybody accusing the union of conspiracy. I think that is complete tabata, complete tabata. The union has worked with previous government before. In my leadership, we work with the government of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. All leadership, especially in post-war Liberia, they've all worked with the government. The union have worked together before, be it government programs here in the United States, be it programs that the government want the union to attend in Liberia. There has always been a collaboration. To see this collaboration now as some kind of market where somebody is buying the other is a complete tabata.
Thank you, Mr. Avatuba.
Yeah, my tabata for the week is government. So it's a combination. Yes, Mr. Kuni is right. ULA should collaborate and work with government. Government should not be giving them $100,000 in cash and then $300,000 when MCSS, the Memorial Consolidated School System, president or director Aziz Zawlo is out there with a GoFundMe begging Liberian people for money to help his school. That is very, very sad. And then, like he said earlier, the young lady died. Instead of focusing on the investigation and finding stuff, the Minister of Justice went and talked and had a press conference about disrobing 4 police officers. What kind of nonsense is that? What is a priority in this country? To show that you're trying to stop police violence when you should have your internal affairs branch in the police to handle most of those things. That's why you can't take our national time, do a press conference and not address the young lady's death or all the other multiple murders that have taken place that they have not investigated. So in essence, the government is just full of tabata. It's a useless government. We need to move on from this government. The Liberian people need to wake up.
Thank you so much. My tabata of the week is what's going on in the House with the ArcelorMittal MDA. That's the Mineral Development Agreement. The House sent it back, say, hey, we don't agree with the Senate, and we should not be in the business of editing or adding anything to this. So we are sending this back to the executive mansion to do the negotiation. The tabata here is ArcelorMittal is mad about this, and they are even contemplating on taking the House to court. I believe that's tabata. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming at this time. We will be getting to you so that we can arrange an actual debate on the issues, because you have very strong opinions. And where else can we do the debate than right here on FOL Friday Night Debate? So watch out. I'll be reaching out to you.
Hey, before we go, Mr. Sharif, I like your business, Mr. Sharif, so I got to connect with you.
You'll make your closing comments.
I think me and Mr. Sharif got some alignment. Me and Mr. Sharif got to talk, Dennis, so I will call you.
Yeah, no, you'll make your closing comment. We want to apologize to our viewers. We're not able to take your comments or call because of time. But again, thank you for always coming. Please, gentlemen, go on there and reply to some of these comments. At this time, let's go around the room for 48 seconds each to give your closing comments. Let's start with Mr. Ava.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Dennis. I apologize. I had a program session for 2 hours from 6 to 8. That's why I couldn't come on earlier. I want to thank the panelists for their participation. You know, we all should be focused on developing our country. Yes, we can have these discussions. By the end of the day, we are all Liberians. We should learn how to engage these debates and not take things personal and be able to really make our points. Overall, I really believe that Mr. Cummings is the ideal candidate to move our country forward. He possesses the expertise, he possesses the knowledge, he possesses the network, he possesses the experience, he possesses the disposition, and he has the capability to make a difference. So Liberian people should open their eyes. They should look at the key issues that should attract people to a candidate, not just popularity, not just noise, and they should not be intimidated. The elections coming, there will be a lot of intimidation leading up to the elections, and we understand that people got to eat, right? And contrary to what Mr. Sharif said, the opposition will not be able to feed people, but the government will be using our money to convince voters. The people should eat the money because that's actually their money, but it has not been converted to them. So they should eat the money the government bring, but they should vote right to make a difference for their children's future, for their own present, and for the future. So my advice to Liberian people is try to shine your eyes, try to be conscious of
eat the
what
money.
makes
And
you a
talking
good
about eat the
president.
money, are you saying you like eat the money?
No, you lot different. I'm talking about the people
No,
on the ground who
you
are
like the
struggling, man.
diaspora.
All right,
You
thank
lot
you.
is embarrassing. You lot with pressure. You lot to return that money to the government of Liberia. You lot
All right,
hassle.
thank you.
MCSS cannot be begging for money and you lot taking 100,000 from this government. That's sick.
I think there's another Tabata right here now.
Thank you, Mr. Kune. Your closing comments.
Well, I think this was a very good debate. I want to say thanks to my fellow panelists. Come 2023, the choice is very, very clear. George Weah has worked for the Liberian people. Development is continuing. There are a lot of development projects.
For the men don't go to work, you say the men working. Sorry.
There are a lot of projects that are ongoing. Road construction, rural electrification, rural housing, and all of these things are ongoing. I think the Liberian people, they want continuity. They want things to continue. They will not invest their time in an opposition that, first of all, don't even have a message. They don't have a unified message. They're fighting among themselves. They can't do anything, as a unit. These people, they've proven to the Liberian people that they can't govern the country. So the Liberian people will look for stability. They will look for continuity, and they will appreciate the humility of George Weah to lead the country for another 6 years. At which time, projects that may not be completed during these first 6 years will be completed and the lives of the Liberian people will be transformed.
Thank you. You keep talking about rural electricity. Are they taking the electricity from the city and taking it to the rural part because we owe Ivory Coast, we cannot pay the bill, so they cut that off?
All of those
challenges, Mr. Tua said we should go for the rainy season.
Those are all budgetary challenges that will be resolved. At least we are making the effort for the people to have electricity, and it is on the basis of that George Weah is going to win a first-round victory. In that second round, it's completely first-round victory.
Thank you, sir. Let me go to Mr. Anthony Gay. Mr. Gay, your closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff, for affording me the opportunity to come on here tonight. When you learned that Mr. Ava was, having a situation that you may have not shown up. I want to say thank you to Mr. Ava for coming out. He's my senior brother, and I always chat with him. But like he said, Mr. Sharif, I will make it also my duty. So you have two persons who will, forward you all the information of Mr. Cummings' activities in Liberia. But here's the thing. Hold on, Mr. Cooney. Here's the thing. Liberians around the world who will have the opportunity to watch this video, I want to speak to you directly. Here's what I want to tell you. The president of the Republic of Liberia told us and told you that you should buy your own CCTV camera and install it, even though there is no electricity. You are on your own. Basically, that's what he's telling you. You are mother, you are father, you are uncle, nephew, and sons and daughter of Liberia. If we continue this trend, we will go to many funerals that will not be able to count. That there will not be time for you to have proper grieving, to recount yourself. It is so sad for our nation that each and every time a person gets murdered and the kids go underwater, or a child get raped and the kids go underwater, to the point that these perpetrators are emboldened because of impunity. They have refused to prosecute these people, put them behind bars, but they are asking for Mr. Cummings' plane ticket that he used to go to America or to come to America. Look, let us be serious for once. Liberia was never like this before. We used to leave our door crack open and sleep. You can no longer do it. I felt trapped when I went to Liberia. Everywhere is iron bar. Everywhere is iron bar. You can't even breathe because of the security circumstances. We deserve better. Every Liberian deserves better in our country. And we don't deserve to live the way we are living because of incompetence, because of gross negligence from our president. It's been over 4 years, 5 years now today we can speak that President Weah have not had a press conference to actually address the nation, tell them what is happening. He only comes on once a year to give the nation address, and that's it. We deny electing for that. Look, take time. Look at yourself today. Are you happy that even if you don't have food, but you still worry to even put your foot out, that tomorrow that you're going to go to another funeral, the day after tomorrow another funeral, no accountability. Then they got that mindset of saying, but crime happens everywhere, even in the great United States. Mind you, when it happens here and they get caught, they are put behind bars. We know that they will fight. We understand that crime will happen because there is a rule here that when you are 21 years of age, you are allowed to carry a firearm. Statistics have shown that the average household of America carry 4 guns. And because of my line of work, I have seen a lot of guns because I go in people's home. But I can tell you for a fact, you don't deserve this kind of life. You don't deserve a life where a president will neglect you, go behind a pulpit and throw jabs at people. You deserve a country where the president will take responsibility, address the nation. I'm speaking to every Liberian today. Wherever you find yourself, you will have the opportunity to come across this video. And I'm speaking, my heart is broken. I do not know that girl, have no relationship with her, but my heart bleeds for every victim. What a rape victim, what a cold murder victim, my heart bleeds for you because one thing you and I share is the nationality of Liberian. So we all have this pain. We should value our citizens. We should value our people. And this government own it to all. They are obligated to us to help solve crime.
Thank you.
Every Liberian deserves better.
Thank you. We got to close, Mr. Gay. Thank you.
Mr. Sharif, the opposition at 15 minutes.
Dennis giving more minutes to ANC. What's going on, Dennis? But seriously, but on a serious note, I want to thank all of the brothers tonight. Even those that I disagree with, or that those that disagree with me, I respect you. I love you all. The thing about Liberia is that this is a small country. And those of us around this platform, it's where we're from. And so we have to take Liberia seriously. I take Liberia seriously. And so when I see people playing games with Liberia, it upsets me. And so I have come on this show and defended Mr. Cummings on some things. But if I see that certain things are not working right, I have to also call it as it is. So that is the point. So I'm glad that you two, you two guys are going to also. I'm willing to learn. Listen. So if you're going to send me information daily on what I don't know, if there's anything else out there that's hidden that Mr. Cummings is doing that we all don't know, that I don't see, please, by all means, please send it to me. My email is msharif18@yahoo.com. So, even for those who out there who want to fill me in or whatever else, because I don't see it and no one else sees it. And so as the election comes up in 2023, the opposition has to do a better job collectively, not just Cummings, but collectively do a better job of articulating the vision. You two guys keep saying, we're not in power. It's not the opposition. We're not creating jobs. We're not the ones to create the jobs. Yes, you are the ones to lay these vision out. The opposition is the government in waiting. So if you don't know that now. The opposition has to articulate these visions. So you have to have an archive of ideas, of things, of blueprints that the government can do. You have to hold the government feet to the fire.
But I take
you are not doing that. You have to hold the government feet to the fire. You're not doing that. Do you have any platform on Social Security? Do you have any platform on retirement? Do you have any platform on agriculture? Do you have anything to which you are constantly calling the government to task? you have not shown that. And because you've not shown that, you are also liable. And finally, I was one of the only ones on this platform who defended Mr. Toba when he published his book. People criticized him, and his own friend Cummings cut him. I was mad at that, and I'm still mad at Cummings for cutting him loose. You know what? Cummings showed that he has no backbones to stand up to the pressure. Mr. Conant, you are absolutely right. You know, now he's doing this to his own friend right now. What is he going to do? He gets in the executive mansion and small pressure get on him. He will crumble. He crumbled under pressure for letting Ava go instead of using that moment to call on the government to do more for abused women, girls, for victims of violence. Instead of using that moment, Mr. Cummings sided with the loudest voice in the street, the empty drums in the street, and cut this man loose. And so you are still with him. I'm not saying you should leave him. You can stay there, but you're going to learn more as you go on and on and on. So thank you, and good night.
Thank you. This Friday, we're going to continue the literary hour with Jackie Sayer and Professor K. Moses Namwe. Then on Saturday, we're going to have the Liberian History Channel with Carl Famula. We're going to be discussing the birth of the African Republic. This is part 4. And then on Sunday, on the FOL Justice Forum, we're going to be discussing the courts, part 3, and we're going to be looking at the Supreme Court. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to thank our viewers for always tuning in to Focus on Liberia. We never close a broadcast without playing the song that says, whether you support Cummings, Boakai, Gongloe, or Cassell, or even President Weah, we are all.
You say who?
And
anybody supporting Cassell right now?
We are all guys.
Dennis, you started something new now.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia.